Hello everyone, welcome to HFY Beyond Terror. This channel is all about HFY and sci-fi stories, where humanity's underestimated and then proves
the Dominion's war carriers cross the void like drifting continents, silent, endless slabs of alloy and menace. From a distance, they looked like storms frozen into metal, 3 kilometers of armored inevitability, bristling with cannons that could turn oceans into vapor. For 3 centuries, they had ended arguments the same way. Commander Sale Vorn stood on the command dais of the flagship Gravemark, one hand resting on the railing as a planet below dimmed into surrender. The species on the surface called themselves the mirrorless, 6-limbed, pale blue beings who built spires like faceted ice. Their cities glittered like reefs of crystal flowers. Yesterday, they'd still carried weapons in the streets. Today, their government broadcast formal capitulation on every channel they could reach. "Send the standard terms," Vorn said, barely looking up. His communications officer didn't need clarification. The terms were always identical. Half of all production shipped to Dominion depots. Youth conscripted into Dominion labor programs. No weapon development. No interstellar travel without authorization. No resistance. Ever. The Mirrorlith agreed within minutes. They always did. Vorn exhaled through his nose, the closest he came to boredom and contempt. Conquest had once been glorious, a test of intellect and fear. But after 40 years of watching species crumble, it became routine. You arrived. You demonstrated the Sable Protocol, the Dominion's biological sterilizers, and the planet folded like paper. A tactical chime interrupted the bridge. "Commander," said the officer at Threat Analysis, "we have new data from the human margin." Vorn's eyes drifted to the display. Humans sat at the edge of mapped space, an unremarkable cluster of systems, a loose scattering of colonies and mining outposts. 50 worlds, maybe less. No galactic influence. No great fleets. They had been warned long ago to remain in their corner and to obey Dominion restrictions. "What are they doing?" Vorn asked. "Same behavior pattern as always," the officer replied. "Agriculture. Resource extraction. Expansion of civilian infrastructure. They have sent another diplomatic request for border recognition." Vorn laughed, a sharp sound. Humans were an irritant, not a threat. Most species either fought in desperation or surrendered in terror. Humans did neither. They persisted quietly stubborn, irritatingly polite, continuing to build as if the Dominion were just weather. "Do they send tribute?" Vorn asked. "No, Commander. They refuse. Every year. They claim self-sovereignty and reject Dominion authority." Vorn pulled up the psychological dossier. Humans were mammals, soft-skinned, fragile, 2 arms, 2 legs. Short lifespans. No natural armor. Physically unimpressive. And yet the Dominion's analysts had never agreed on one thing. Humans bonded, intensely. They formed clusters called families. They defended their young with irrational ferocity. They mourned their dead with rituals that lasted generations. They built stories and passed them down like weapons. They would sacrifice their own lives for strangers and seemed to take pride in the act. It had always struck the Dominion as defective behavior. In Dominion culture, only survival mattered. Weakness was a lesson. Attachment was a liability. Still, the humans were too distant to justify conquest, too small to bother with. And besides, the Dominion's Central Command had real problems brewing. Rebel coalitions in the inner spiral, supply disruptions, and the growing arrogance of subject species who had started dreaming of freedom. Humans were a curiosity, nothing more. Until the scouts found thorium beneath a world called Red Haven. Admiral Kethra Ull, Supreme Marshal of the Dominion's outer fleets, read the mineral survey over breakfast. The report named deposits so rich they could fuel a decade of Sable Protocol production. How many humans live there? She asked. 2,000, said her aide. Mostly farmers. The colony is 8 years old. All's expression didn't change. Send a relocation detachment, she said. This will be quick. 1. The day the sky turned black, Dr. Lena Marlowe was harvesting vine fruit when the Dominion ships arrived. They cast shadows the size of cities across Red Haven soil, and the air normally warm with pollen and insects turned still. Her 8-year-old son ran up the hill with dirt on his knees, staring upward with wide eyes. "They're here again," he whispered. Lena pulled him close. Red Haven wasn't a fortress. It wasn't a military site. It was rows of crops, water towers, schools, and workshops, a place built for growing things. A transmission reached the colony within hours. Evacuate within 48 hours. Dominion claim, non-compliance will be treated as obstruction. They expected panic. Instead, the Colony Council sent one message back. No, this is our home. Captain HFY commanded the relocation fleet. He had done dozens of removals. Usually, it went like this. A species saw the ships and surrendered before the first warning finished playing. Humans did something else. They refused. VAR opened a direct channel to the woman listed as colony liaison, Dr. Lena Marlowe. "You do not understand," he told her. His voice was measured, even gentle. "This is a Dominion claim. You will be moved. You will be compensated within Dominion guidelines." "We understand perfectly," Lena replied. Her voice wasn't hysterical. It wasn't pleading. It was calm. "We will not leave." VAR stared at his screen as if it had lied. He forwarded the refusal to Admiral All. "They refuse?" All repeated. "They have no fleet, no weapons. What do they think they are?" VAR had no answer. He only felt something unfamiliar, like unease. All reviewed the human dossier again. Bonding, territory, grief, ritual. Perhaps they needed demonstration. "Destroy something," she ordered. "Minimal casualties. We want compliance, not martyrdom." Captain VAR looked down at Red Haven settlement. There was a school, a medical clinic, a community hall. All's finger tapped the scanner feed. "Strike the school. Wait until the children are gone." VAR hesitated. "Admiral," he said carefully, "this seems excessive." "The Dominion does not bargain with disobedience," All replied. "Fire when the building is empty." 2. The mistake, the school schedule was different than Dominion intelligence predicted. Class continued into late afternoon. The children were still inside when the officer returned to VAR with updated scans. "Sir," she said, "the building is occupied." VAR's throat tightened. "Hold fire," he said. "We wait." The order came back from All immediately. Fire. VAR's hand hovered over the confirmation panel. He remembered his own childhood, not the faces, not the names, but the sensation. Safety. A warm place. A teacher's voice. His ship's weapons officer glanced at him, uncertain. VAR swallowed. And obeyed. The sterilizer pod struck the school at 1446 local time. There was no explosion. No flames. The building simply died. Its framework collapsed inward like rotting bone. Organic matter inside was reduced to gray slurry. The air shimmered with chemical sterilization. The sensor report was clinical. 41 children. 7 adults. Total casualties, 48. VAR felt his stomach twist. "Send the second evacuation notice," All ordered. 12 hours. "If they refuse, continue." VAR watched the colony below through external feeds. He expected chaos. Instead, the humans gathered. They dug into the wreckage with bare hands until their fingers bled. They carried bodies as if they were glass. They laid the dead in rows. They didn't scream at the sky. They wept, not one family. All of them. They stood close together, arms around shoulders, heads lowered, crying as a single organism. And then Lena Marlowe stepped forward, her face streaked with dust and tears, and looked straight into Var's camera. Her eyes were empty of fear. "This is Dr. Lena Marlowe," she said. "You killed our children." She didn't shout. She didn't beg. Her voice was steady, precise, terrifying. "We will not leave, and we will not forget." Var's skin prickled. Then the humans began to bury their dead. They sang. They placed small carved toys on the graves. They spoke names into the wind and pressed their foreheads to the soil. And when it was finished, they returned to work. They repaired the water lines. They replanted the fields. They taught the surviving children in the community hall. As if the Dominion weren't there. Var reported this to all. "They're staying," he said. All's eyes narrowed. "Then destroy their water plant," she said. "Force them." Var stared. "Admiral, Captain," All cut him off. "Your discomfort is irrelevant." 3. The awakening the water plant dissolved. 6 hours later, Red Haven had a new system wells bored with agricultural equipment, filtration built from parts stripped from tractors, pumps running through the night. Var didn't understand it. Dominion engineers didn't understand it. How are they doing this? All demanded. Var only watched the feeds. Humans moved with a kind of coordination he had never seen. They weren't trained soldiers, but they worked like a unit that had rehearsed disaster 1,000 times. And then came a message, one that did not come from the Colony Council. It came from Earth, a single transmission, broadcast across every human relay and civilian channel. Emergency protocol. Iron Seed. All human vessels are reassigned to Defense Command. All colonies to initiate contingency readiness. All citizens are authorized for defensive action. The Dominion analysts dismissed it. Humans had no war fleet, but the Dominion didn't understand the nature of humans. They didn't build weapons because they wanted war. They built them because they feared what they might become if they ever needed them. And now they needed them. 4. Civilian ships became teeth in human space. Ships changed overnight. A long-haul cargo hauler drifted into a docking ring and emerged with heat sinks disguised as plating and industrial cutters, disguised as weapon arrays. A survey vessel turned its scanning array into a gravitational pulse emitter. A FAE mining skiff reconfigured its drilling charges into shaped warheads. Scientists became tacticians. Farmers became engineers of violence. Teachers became planners. They did not mobilize like an empire. They mobilized like a wildfire. The first Dominion patrol squad vanished near the border. No wreckage. No distress call. One moment they were a signal on the net. The next, nothing. Dominion intelligence officer called it impossible. A human captain called it a beginning. The human ship responsible was an exploration craft named Quiet Meridian, commanded by Captain Sora Imani, formerly a xenogeologist. Her crew had never fired a military cannon, but they had studied the Dominion for 300 years. When they struck, it was silent. A gravitational pulse compressed a cruiser into a twisted ball the size of a transport crate. A second ship was erased by mining charges disguised as asteroid sampling rigs. The third managed a partial signal before its own cannons turned inward, hacked through its control systems by a human linguist who spoke machine language better than Dominion engineers ever had. The Dominion called it barbarity. Humans called it restraint. because the Dominion still had not understood the difference. Humans didn't go to war to win territory. They went to war to end threats, and they didn't stop until the threat no longer existed. 5. The lesson the Dominion couldn't learn, Admiral. All began losing installations faster than her command could process. Supply convoys disappeared. Dockyards went dark. Bioweapon storage depots detonated from within. And always. The attackers were not warships. They were civilian vessels arriving where they shouldn't be, equipped with weapons that shouldn't exist, moving like ghosts. Where is their fleet? All demanded. Her advisors couldn't answer because the question was wrong. Humans had no fleet. Humans had people. Single human could destroy a military station if they accepted dying in the attempt, and humans bonded. Humans, grieving humans, had become willing to die by the thousands. 6. A woman with nothing left. Months into the war, Admiral L received a transmission on her private channel. It came through every speaker at once, as if space itself had been wired for her humiliation. "This is Dr. Lena Marlowe," said the voice. All froze. The humans were not supposed to know her channel. "You killed my son," Lena continued, "and 47 other children. You believed you were teaching us fear," she said softly. "You were right." All's hands trembled as her sensors showed only empty space. "We learned to fear what we are capable of becoming." There was a pause. Then Lena's voice sharpened like glass. "And now you will learn." 7. The end of the Empire. The Dominion flagship died without battle, a human vessel, its hull disguised as harmless cargo plating, appeared inside the flagship's core as if the metal around it wasn't real. Impossible, and yet it happened. The ship's existence broke every Dominion law of physics. The humans had not broken physics. They had simply explored it deeper. Admiral All demanded surrender terms. Lena Marlowe stood over the Dominion command dais, older now, hardened, her eyes carrying the weight of a graveyard. She answered with 3 words, no terms offered. The Dominion fell within weeks. Not by grand battles. By attrition. By surgical strikes. By the collapse of fear itself as other enslaved species finally dared to breathe. When it was over, the galaxy didn't celebrate. It went quiet. As if the stars were listening. 8. The memorial. 2 years later, Red Haven built a monument at the site of the school. It was simple. Stone from the planet's red cliffs, polished and engraved with 48 names. No flags. No speeches about glory. Only names. Lena Marlowe wrote the inscription herself. Here lie the children who taught the galaxy that love is not weakness, and that those who harm the young will not outlive the consequence. Families came from across human space. They placed flowers and toys and handwritten notes at the stone's base. Ambassadors from liberated species attended in silence. One of them, a tall avian diplomat from the Solari Union, asked Lena later, "Why did you stop? You could rule us now. You could conquer the way they did." Lena stared at the memorial, her hand resting against the carved names. "We didn't fight to become them," she said. "We fought so our children could grow without fear." The diplomat hesitated. "But the fear is still there," she whispered. "Everyone fears you now." Lena nodded once. "That's the price." She looked up as human patrol ships crossed the sky like distant moving stars. "But maybe being feared is worth it, if it keeps children safe." And the memorial stood, unmoving, a marker of the day gardeners became wolves and then chose, painfully, to become guardians instead.